Sports in this January 29th, 2024 episode. As always, we have a phenomenal episode for you. We always have a phenomenal episode for you. But let me send the link to our guest, who I will tell you about in just a moment. Let's get that link over to him real fast. Boom. We sent it. We are in like Flynn. All right. Perfect. Glad you have joined us here on Mach 10 Sports. Again, fantastic episode. You can tell I brought it. We got a new pin here. Some of my favorite pins in the world. I know it's a little off topic here, but these multicolor ones, the different colors. Like when I worked college football, I always like to have these so I could separate my notes kind of by section, by color code it really. So got a new pin. We're ready to rock and roll here on this Monday episode. We're 2.5 weeks away from first pitch in the 2024 SEC baseball season. I mean, even Baseball America had their preseason top 25 poll come out today. 8 SEC teams in. If you are surprised, you probably are not. You're probably not surprised that there's 8 SEC teams. We got LSU, Florida, Arkansas, Vandy, Tennessee, Texas A&M, the usual suspects. And then Auburn coming in. I've seen some top 25 polls come out with, like I said, about 2.5 weeks, February 16th. I believe it is the exact date of opening day for SEC teams. Seen a lot of teams switch out either Alabama or Auburn, or a lot of polls switch out Auburn and Alabama, kind of as that 8th team, 7th, 8th team in their preseason poll. But Auburn comes in for Baseball America's preseason top 25 polls, the last SEC team in. I think D1 Baseball had Alabama. But again, 8 SEC teams coming in. Goes to my next point, College Baseball Central's Alex Day does a phenomenal job for their website, for their publisher. He's joining us. He'll preview the 2024 SEC season. We're going to talk about what does LSU have to do to replace the Dylan Cruz, the Paul Skeens, the Trey Morgans of the world for them to potentially repeat, for Jay Johnson and the boys to repeat. Talk about Ole Miss. We're going to Magnolia State, best state for baseball, even including Southern Miss outside of the SEC. We're going to go to the Magnolia State, talk about can Mississippi State, Ole Miss bounce back? Mississippi State, Ole Miss bounce back, a lot of preseason publications. But as we know, if you followed SEC baseball for a while, there's always somebody that's a little bit of a team that's projected to finish lower than they are, to exceed expectations. It usually happens in basketball and baseball, I feel like a lot more. But we'll talk about but we'll also talk about some other things like Florida, Jack Caglianone. Do we see anyone else kind of taking that reign as potential SEC player of the year? That's the first baseman for Florida, also their Sunday pitcher. It's got real good stuff, just has to get it under command. So we're going to talk some SEC baseball here for you SEC fans out there. So stick with us. We'll get Alex on around 8:30, so about 27, 25 minutes away. Moving over to basketball, we had a phenomenal day on the basketball court on Saturday. How deep is the SEC? It's starting to get serious now. 7 teams in the top 50 in net rankings right now. And you got Ole Miss and South Carolina just outside it. I think you got South Carolina at 52nd, Ole Miss 56, I think is what it is. We'll talk about the net rankings as we talk about basketball. We'll talk about my SEC basketball power rankings. Remember everybody was talking about the SEC in general in basketball back at Thanksgiving, like, yeah, is it a down league, or is it not that good of a league this year from talking about it? No, it's the deepest I can remember. Woo! Probably going back to the early to mid 2000s. It may be deeper than that. Seriously, like 2002, 2005-ish era, maybe, when Billy Donovan was kind of just getting it rolling. You still had Kentucky, Alabama was good. Bruce Pearl was at Tennessee. Just on that, John Brady still at LSU, who was one of our guests this past week. They went to the Final Four in that era. Probably since then. But 1 through 11, if you count LSU, at LSU, at the PMAC, not an easy road game. Everybody's finding out. It's tough to win. I mean, look at Auburn this past week. We'll talk about it. They had a rough week on the road, granted, against 2 NCAA tournament caliber teams against Alabama and Georgia. But again, the league's as deep as I can remember. I think it's a top 2 league in the country right now. So we'll talk about that. Again, we'll bring up my power rankings. And then we'll get into my segment of football here. What are the expectations for Mike Elko in year 1 down in Aggieland at Texas A&M? We'll talk about that. But first, let's go around the SEC for you here. Around the SEC, Senior Bowl week going on down in Mobile, ran by the CEO, executive director. I forget what his title exactly is. I know Jim, but Jim Nagy over there used to be a scout with the Patriots and the Seahawks. He does a phenomenal job running the show down there for the Senior Bowl. They had their measurements. Today was a big measurement day. I actually interned there back in 2016 when Phil Savage was running. They did a phenomenal job. They always do a phenomenal job. The city of Mobile embraces it. It's really the draft capital of the country, really. It's the best all-star game, bar none, second to none. Phenomenal. But let's go through some SEC players. Mobile native, Spanish Fort native, right here from Missouri, right off the bat. Corner, Chris Abrams-Drain. I think he measured in at, 5'11", 3/8, 173. Then you got the arms, 31-inch arms, 8 and 7/8 hands, and 74-inch wing. Look at some other SEC guys here. Alabama, Chris Braswell, the edge defender, outside linebacker, coming in at 6'3" and a quarter, 257, 32-inch arms, 9 3/8 hands, and he's got an 80-inch wing. So big, long guy, just like we knew Chris Braswell would be, just rolling through that. Georgia, Javon Bullard coming in, the safety for Georgia down in Mobile this week, coming in at 5'10 and a half, 197, 30.5-inch arms, really about an 8 3/4 hand, close to it, and then a 70-inch wing for Javon Bullard out there, the hard-hitting safety. A little lighter than I thought he'd be, though. 5'10 and a half, 197, under 200 pounds. He'd probably like to be over that. When he gets to the combine, I'm sure he'll be over 200 pounds. So it's always interesting to see how the measurements differ from down in Mobile to when we go in late February, March to Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. Coming over here as well, Mississippi State, Jaden Crumity, the big defensive lineman, comes in at 6'4 and a quarter, 309, 32-inch arms, 9 3/4 hands, big hands. Well, I mean, for his size, though, it's really not that big. And then 78-inch wing. So a little bit stumpier there, a little bit, but that's for Mississippi State's Jaden Crumity. Kentucky, Ray Davis, the running back, comes in at 5'8 and a half, 220. It's about what everybody kind of thought he'd be. 29-inch arm, closer to 9-inch hand, and 72-inch wing there for the running back from Kentucky. Alabama's defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman, Justin Igboigwe, coming in at 6'4 and an eighth, 292, 32-inch arm, 9.5 hand, 80-inch wing. I like Justin Igboigwe. I think he could be a solid player. He kind of comes off kind of like a Detroit Lion to me a little bit. That sounds weird as hell that I'm saying that. And it's not just I'm kind of a product of the environment. You know what I'm saying right there. It's not just because they played yesterday. Recency bias, I should say. It just kind of seems like a guy who the Lions would go get after. Georgia here, running back Dewan Edwards. Dejon Edwards coming in at 5'9 and 3/8, 202. It's really short arms here. 29-inch arms, 9-inch hand, 71-inch wing. Dejon Edwards, good player. Kingsley Iguakin, the offensive lineman for Florida, comes in at 6'3 and 2/8, 300. 32-inch arms, 9-inch hands, 81-inch wing. Kind of smaller interior guy for you there if you're a Florida Gator fan. Jeremy Flax, another offensive lineman from the SEC, coming from Kentucky, 6'5 and a quarter, 360. Real heavy kid Flax is here. 33-inch arms, 9-inch hand, 81.5 wing there. For Missouri, Javon Foster on the offensive line coming in, solid unit this year. Not a lot of injuries for Missouri, but we'll see Javon over in Mobile this week. You can get on the NFL Network. They have a bunch of the practice one-on-one stuff. The game doesn't mean as much. It's really about the practice stuff. But he's coming in at 6'5 and a half, 309, 35-inch arm, 9 3/8 hand, 82-inch wing. Big kid right there. As you can see, coming in at 309 right there. It's a big kid. Keep going down there. Auburn here. We got Marcus Harris, former kid we signed when I was at Kansas, 6'2", 284. A little bit undersized. That's why he wasn't a heavily recruited kid out of Montgomery, but we out-evaluated everyone for that. 32-inch arm, 9-inch hand, and 77-inch wing there for Marcus. Keep going down to me. You see guys like Notre Dame. Sam Hartman is there. Keep going down. Texas A&M, McKinley Jackson, the interior defensive tackle, 6'1 and a half. He was an undersized, stumpy guy, but really disruptive, especially against the run. 331, 33-inch arm, 9-inch hand, 80-inch wing going on. Jordan Jefferson for LSU coming in on the defensive line, the West Virginia transfer, 6'2", closer to 6'3-ish, 323, 32-inch arm, 9 7/8 hand, 79-inch wing, closer to 80 there. Cedric Johnson, the big edge defender for the Ole Miss Rebels, coming in at 6'2 and 7/8, 260 pounds, 33-inch arm, and like 9 4/8 hand there, and then 79-inch, closer to 80-inch wing there. I feel like we're seeing a lot of that with the edge defenders of the SEC. A lot of similar measurements, a lot of stumpy guys with the interior. That's why I like Justin Igboigwe. from Alabama. I think he's got a lot. Bo Limmer, interior offensive lineman for the Arkansas Razorbacks, coming in 6'4.5", 301, 31-inch arm, closer to about 9.5 hand, 77 wing there for Bo. Center for Arkansas this past year. Georgia, Ladd McConkey, the big receiver, coming in 5'11.5", 187, 30-inch arms, smaller hands right there. But it doesn't seem like it's affected him so far in 72-inch wing. I mean, I guess catch radius, but we never really thought much of that in evaluation. Smaller hands there for Ladd. That'll be interesting. Does he go the Brandon Allen route? Talk about the stories of changing the measurables from the Senior Bowl to the NFL Combine. Where Brandon Allen had really small hands at the Senior Bowl. He went and got a massage every day until the NFL Combine. I think he got like an extra quarter an inch, maybe a half an inch. Not too big of a difference, but again, when you're splitting those small of atoms, it's a big deal. For Tennessee, Joe Milton, the big gunslinger, coming in at 6'5", 235, 33-inch arm, 10 and 3-inch hands. That's massive. And then 80-inch wing for Joe Milton there. It'll be interesting to see how he looks this week. Then who else? William Mott, the long snapper for Georgia, 6 foot, 236, normal size for an NFL long snapper, 31-inch arms, 9-inch hands, 75-inch wing. That's Georgia's long snapper, William Mott. Then we got Florida's Ricky Pearsall, their number one receiver from this past year, 6 foot, 7/8, 193, 30-inch arm, 9-inch hand, 73.5 wing. Remember, you got Michael Penix will be there. Andrew Phillips, corner from Kentucky, coming in at 5'10.5", 191, 31.5-inch arms. What do we got there? 88 smaller hands there, 8.5-inch hands and 75-inch wing. Auburn's Nehemiah Pritchett, one of their better guys in the secondary for the Auburn Tigers there, coming in at 6 foot, dang near on the spot, 188. 31.5, 8-inch, 74.5. So I love these numbers. It may bore some people out there, but I always love looking at it. Spencer Rattler coming in at 6 foot, almost on the dot, 219, 31.5 arm, 9-inch hand, 74.5 wing. Really at quarterback, you're looking for the height, weight, and the hand there. Alabama, Will Reichard, 6'5", 191. Missouri, Darius Robinson. I really liked him this year. Defensive lineman, 6'5" on the dot, 286. Closer to 34.5 wing, 10-inch hand, 84.5 right there. Let's see. Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint from Georgia. Big receiver right there, 6'1", 205, 33-inch arms, 9 and 7/8 hand. What do we got there? 78. If I'm looking there, it's closer. 78 wing. Cody Schrader, one of the better running backs, led the SEC in rushing, 5'8", 207, 28-inch arms, 9 and 2/8 hand, 68-inch and a half. That's hand's really small. It's got to be a mismeasurement, right? Jalen Simpson for Auburn coming in at 5'11.5", 178. Aniyah Smith, 5'9", 191. About right. It'd be interesting to see what he'll run at the combine. Tyke Smith, corner from Georgia. Sorry, I'm going over the arm, hand, and wingspan. Tyke Smith, a little undersized. We knew that, though. 5'9", 206. Keep going down here. T'Vondre Sweat, who I liked at Texas a lot. 6'4". Didn't weigh in. For LSU, Charles Turner, the offensive lineman, 6'3.5", 300. Kentucky, Trevin Wallace coming in inside backer, 6'1" and 2/8, 244. Nathaniel Watson from Mississippi State, 6'2" and 1, 244. That's really it. Did across the board right there, guys. Just going over some Senior Bowl numbers for you right there. I eat that stuff up. Just on personnel, guys. Just wanted to go over it. Sorry if I bored you here for a minute. Also wanted to share what is going on in Auburn's athletics department right now with their two leaders, faces of the athletics department right there. Especially starting off this with Hugh Freeze's tweet. Setting the standard in year one. Here's what the tweet says. 1 year, highest ranked first-year recruiting class among active SEC coaches. Hugh Freeze in the 2024 class at 8. First of all, this isn't right because Georgia did it. Kirby's first class for 2017, I believe it finished 3rd. So this is wrong. But again, I don't like this stuff. This is just a Dave thing. This is just a Dave Mach 10 Sports thing. I get it. You underachieved your first year, finished with a losing record. You're doing well in recruiting. Got 2 of the top 3 receivers in the state, 2 of the top 5 receivers in the country. Auburn recruiting well. But again, this is stuff is what kills me. Just go out and win games. Cut out the promotion propaganda. This is like I'm nitpicking something like, hey, like it's always like the Nick Saban stat Auburn fans used to say. He's never beaten an Auburn team with 9 or more wins. He can't control really how many games Auburn wins out the season. He was just focused on his Alabama teams. It's like nitpicky stats. Who cares about this stat? And I guess there's some Auburn fans eating it up, but they're getting destroyed on social media. I mean, it says 1 year, highest ranked first-year recruiting class among active SEC coaches. Hugh Freeze coming in 2020 in the 2024 class, 8th. I don't know. I just that rubbed me the wrong way. It's just you're reaching. You're reaching. And let's go to Bruce Pearl. Bruce comments on something I wouldn't. And I like Bruce Pearl. I like Bruce Pearl a ton. I think he's a great basketball coach. He's done a phenomenal job at Auburn, resurrecting that program, really since 2019, doing a good job with them. And even go back to 2018. See, here it is. So Justin Ferguson, I think he's a beat writer for Georgia for Auburn, tweets all Auburn's metrics after their loss at Mississippi State on Saturday. They're still fine. T rank 3, Evan Mia 5, BPI 6, Kim Pom 7, and Net 9. Auburn's fine. No one's saying that. But the head basketball coach at Auburn quote tweets it and says, "Hey, Auburn family, we're not happy at all with losing 2 on the road this week, but we lost to 2 very good teams. We were competitive in both and didn't shoot well in either. We'll continue to work, play hard, and compete. We care and we appreciate your passion, War Eagle." Why even address that? They aren't 2 bad losses. At Alabama and at Mississippi State, those are 2 tournament teams. Alabama's going to probably be a top 5 team in the NCAA tournament, top 5 seed team. So a top 25 team at the end of the year. It's like sometimes these coaches on social media get the best of them and you really care about what people are thinking. Maybe I'm overlooking the Bruce Pearl thing, but it's just kind of interesting. Both of Auburn's kind of faces of their athletics department, Bruce Pearl and Hugh Freeze, both on the same day kind of tweeting stuff that's irrelevant. Who cares? Go take care of your own business, guys. Auburn, you're fine. I still think you have the best depth in the league. Question a little guard play. We'll talk a little basketball. Just thought I'd bring that up. Interesting from that perspective. Wanted to bring that up. In Florida, hires Joe Houston from the New England Patriots to be its special teams coach, special teams coordinator. No more game-changing position that Billy Napier used to call. I forgot who he hired for that job, but that's what he called the special teams role. Is no more quote-unquote game-changer position that really matter anymore. Now he's just – special teams weren't great for Florida last year. We remember the substitution issue. They had game week 1 against Utah last year. It kind of gave Utah all the momentum back. They never looked back. If you remember right, what did they do? They muff a punt, and Florida recovered it, and Florida had 2 illegal substitutions. It was something like that. Game-changing play. Utah scored right after it. Can't happen. Well, they're trying to fix it. But now he's just the special teams coordinator. Probably a pretty solid hire for Billy Napier and the boys. But that is around the SEC. I'm going to jump ahead. Before we get into basketball, before we get Alex on in about 12 minutes, I'm going to go right into our football feature here. I'm going to go right into our football feature here on what the expectations should be for Mike Elko in year 1. 1 second. Let me tweet it out, and we will get right to it. Let me get it out right here. The expectations. Here we go. All right, let's get to it. All right, first, what should expectations be for Mike Elko in year 1 in College Station? I mean, seriously, what should it be? I think there's plenty to like. He's the new man in College Station after a successful 2-year stint at Duke, where he went 16-9 with 2 bowl appearances. Now, the talent isn't bare. They obviously recruited well under Jimbo. And in that first portal window in December, Mike Elko and his squad and his staff that he put together and some of his personnel recruiting staff brought in some winnable plus guys out of the portal during the December signing day period. And when I say winnable plus, winnable are guys that you can win with, but you don't win because of them. Winnable plus are multi-year starters that you're winning because of them. Now, elite, rare, on that scale, it's on a totally different scale there. But I just wanted to set the tone on what winnable plus was. And they have at all different levels. We'll talk about that. They've brought in some of those guys from the transfer portal. But Texas A&M isn't waiting around to use this as a rebuilding year, as you often hear in new head coaches saying in their early tenures. They brought in 22 portal additions so far, and we still have a spring cycle, just rolling through them real fast. Kansas State corner Will Lee, Youngstown State linebacker Alex Howard, Louisiana Tech wide receiver Cyrus Allen, Central Michigan's Trey Jones, or safety Trey Jones, Purdue's tight end Garrett Miller, Vanderbilt safety to Ricky Wright, who could probably move down and provide some depth inside the box. Bigger kid struggles to cover. Georgia kicker. I mean, in all positions here, A&M's bringing some guys. Jared Zirkle, Purdue edge guy, who I like a lot. One of the bigger guys they got here. Nick Scorton, I like this kid a lot. Was tied, I think, with the Big Ten in sacks. San Diego State safety Marcus Ratcliffe, Cal Poly corner Donovan Saunders, Troy wide receiver Jabril Barber, Troy offensive lineman Derek Graham, Florida DB Jaden Hill, Florida linebacker Scooby Williams, Wisconsin defensive lineman Rodis Johnson, UAB corner BJ Mays, Kansas offensive lineman Armaje Reed Adams, Stanford running back E.J. Smith, that's Emmitt Smith's junior son, Bowling Green edge defender, who I like as well. I remember this kid from Kansas City, Missouri, Cassius Howe. We also, when I was at Kansas, signed Armaje Reed Adams. He's a Dallas kid, so him going back to the state of Texas makes sense. That's really what the portal is these days. Florida Atlantic offensive lineman Dorian Hinton, Fresno State tight end Trey Watson, and Alabama corner, who was a true freshman this last year, Des Ricks. It's 22 kids they brought in. That's 8. You can see their attack. You can see by the numbers where they're attacking and what they're going to want to do from a scheme standpoint. 8 DBs, 5 linebackers if you're including edge players like Scorton, and you're including guys like my guy Cassius Howe also. So you're including those guys. And then if you include Ricky Wright, you might as well throw him in there. Like I said, he's kind of a bigger safety. Would probably fit a bit better down in the box. And they added 2 tight ends. So, I mean, with Colin Klein, their new OC coming over from Kansas State, who we'll mention in just a minute. They're trying to fix that issue there. Because I think who they only have on that depth chart, Donovan Green, I think, is the only other kids. They got to bring in some guys, and they brought in 2 transfers and then 3 offensive linemen from depth. I think they like the starting 5, but you need depth because, as we know on the show, we talk about it all the time. Inevitably, injuries are going to happen. Like I said, they brought in some proven guys. You heard some of the lists of some of these schools from the lower level, like Alex Howard from Youngstown State. They brought in some guys from proven Power 4 teams. I'm not saying Power 5 anymore because the Pac-12 is gone, but some guys from proven Power 4 teams like Nick Scourton from Purdue, Will Lee at Kansas State. And then I said guys like Cassius Howe, tied for the most sacks in the MAC at Bowling Green. And then some younger, talented guys like Des Ricks, who came over from Alabama, was a highly recruited corner in the 2023 class. So a lot of additions, and I'm sure they will get through their first 15 spring practices together under Mike Elko and reevaluate the roster and get back into the portal market when the spring window opens. That's what I'm assuming they're going to do. Now, I worked at Texas A&M in 2018 under Jimbo Fisher, so that was Mike Elko's first year defense coordinator. So I've been with Mike Elko during a transition, so I'm very familiar with him. Smart, organized, detailed guy that has a plan. Ivy League education, smart, educated guy. But I've always thought relatability, and I would tell him this to his face, relatability will be an issue, in my opinion, here. Relatability. Very similar to Lane Kiffin's kind of portal approach and personality, but differently. Like Mike Elko is not going to be tweeting, attacking other programs, not attacking, just trolling other programs like that. But they both don't like the long-term relationship goal of recruiting the high school kid. It makes them a little uncomfortable. They don't like to maintain. And it is. It's like maintaining a car. You got to, every day, hey, buddy, you good? Like, come on, I'm hearing some stuff, especially if he's an out-of-state kid. The relationship side of it to the portal is not as long. It's more transactional. So he doesn't have to play the long game. He doesn't have to. Very transactional process I mentioned, which is great in today's time. But I don't think you can go as heavy as Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin have gone in the portal at a school like Texas A&M, because in a state like Texas, the high school coaches want to be so involved. It's the biggest football state in the country. I mean, you can make an argument between Texas, Florida, and California, but Texas easily top 2. I'd put it. I mean, from the high school coaches caring as well, and from an organization standpoint, Texas is 1. Now, I'm not saying Mike Elko's implementing that strategy, but it seems like they will use their salary pool on proven players from, as I proved it, all levels, Power 4, FCS. They're going to retain. They're going to use it as retention. They're going to try to out-evaluate people through the high school ranks, because I don't think they want to, from talking to some people over there, they don't want to use a lot of money on some unproven high school kids. So that's where I'm kind of feeling A&M is. But to this season specifically, I wanted to go over a few things I like about Texas A&M, as well to bring up some concerns I have with the Ags heading into the 2024 season as of today. Things I like. Mike Elko has some familiarity to this program from his time being the DC from 2018 to 2021. Jimbo Fisher's first DC. Jimbo, in my opinion, wasn't just a total disaster. And I'm not saying anybody's saying that. But he wasn't a total disaster. Jimbo raised the ceiling for Texas A&M in recruiting. He made them more of a national brand than people are willing to say because he came in with a national championship resume and had an ungodly contract that got people's attention. I mean, recruiting was in the middle of an era change during Jimbo's tenure, and he made them a national brand due to his resume, and everybody knows Jimbo Fisher, and he's phenomenal in front of kids and parents. Just turns it on, storyteller, Uncle Jimbo. Like, he does a phenomenal job. He's one of the best I've been. Always hear Mac Brown does a phenomenal job one-on-one meetings. Always wanted to hear from Billy Hives over at Tennessee and Pat Slettis, who's the GM at North Carolina. I always thought Mac Brown and Hurd done a great job. Obviously, Nick Saban, but Jimbo Fisher did a phenomenal job too. And he kind of got A&M recruiting national, got that brand out there. So all wasn't bad in College Station. But obviously, Jimbo had his faults. And Elko at least will have some answers to the test as he enters his first season. He isn't walking into this blind. Now, he's somewhat of an introvert, but he talks to quite a few people, more than you would think, in the media. And he's talked to quite a few of the big wigs, big people at Texas A&M, the big money people, while he was the defensive coordinator down there. So he's already got a head start on that. He knows who to go. He knows the lay of the land, who to go talk to. So there's familiarity with the people around the program and specifically that roster because he recruited a lot of those guys. He was only gone 2 seasons. And then he got his feet wet as a head coach. And I keep saying it, but the Aggies, relatively speaking, have a manageable schedule this year. They have a relatively manageable schedule this year. Let's pull up the schedule for Texas A&M right now. Pull it up for you. Pull it up, and here we go. I mean, comparatively, hear me out now. This is an SEC schedule. So relative. Open up with Notre Dame. A lot of toss-ups here. Notre Dame at home. It's winnable. McNeese could be a win. At Florida could be a tough game. Bowling Green at home. Arkansas and Arlington is normal. Missouri in College Station, former Big 12 brethren, getting them at home. They haven't played that much since they've been in the SEC. At Mississippi State, LSU at home, at South Carolina, by New Mexico State. Watch out, New Mexico. Watch out for New Mexico State. Auburn knows. And then at Auburn and Texas at home. At Auburn and Texas, I have a hard time seeing them win both those games. It's kind of not a trap, but total look ahead game. I wouldn't want to go to Auburn the week before I play Texas, where people are going to be hyping that up forever, that game. But it's a very manageable schedule. I mean, I don't see any for sure losses except really right now, except Texas. I mean, I really don't. I mean, you really got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games that are kind of in that toss-up to loss mode because I'm counting Texas, and 5 of them are at home. They only got to go on the road at Auburn and at South Carolina. I mean, in Elko's first year, they got to win at Mississippi State. Those are games you can't afford to lose. There's a lot of very winnable games. I mean, they could win 6 games, or they could win 9. It's big. I mean, you're always going to lose a game in your coach's first year, but this is a very manageable schedule. If I'm a Texas A&M fan, it really is. That's why I think the over/under will be something like 7.5. It wouldn't shock me if that's over 7.5. But just some concerns to wrap this up. How does Connor Wigman fit into Colin Klein's scheme? I mean, Klein's offense differs from that of Fisher's, obviously. The Wildcats ran more multiple formations, primarily relied on mobility from the quarterback position, which was either Adrian Martinez or Will Howard or Skylar Thompson, and now Avery Johnson, who's taken over. It was a run-heavy offense during Kleinman's tenure in Manhattan. I mean, Klein led the offense to back-to-back top 40 scoring offenses and top 15 rushing totals. Last season, the Wildcats averaged over 445 yards and 37.8 points per game. Now, as we all know, the best coaches tweak their core system to their personnel. The best do. They're not just stuck in this system. And at K-State, they had Deuce Vaughn for a lot of Colin Klein's time at running back. So I would have given it to him as well. And then Will Howard fit the system perfectly. He's taken his talents to USC, probably to get a little bit more developed, honed in as a passer, because he kind of was what he was. Stay ahead of the chains. Let's make some plays on third down. And then let's be honest. Kansas State was never, from a roster standpoint, going to be able to recruit high-end wide receivers. So I get it. Colin Klein this will be the most talented wide receiver group he's had at his disposal this year as a coordinator. And it's an okay room. Like the Noah Thomases of the world, they're okay. And Jemai Walker and guys like that, they're fine. This will be the best room he's had. Now, Klein will also have some ideas from guys like co-OC, wide receiver coach Holloman Wiggins, offensive line coach Adam Cushing, and then who's been around Kevin Johns, who finished runner-up for the Iowa job. So a lot of ideas around there. I'm sure they'll tweak it. But I'm really concerned about Connor Weigman fitting into that. That's a concern of mine. And then I'm not overly sold on defensive coordinator Jay Bateman at that position. But I know Mike Elko will be involved, so the defense will be solid. No out-scheme teams, because that's what Mike Elko does. Expect a lot of simulated pressures and zone blitzes. Elko spoke in numerous clinics, very vocal and honest about his style. He admits, I'll concede some yards, very strategic in his play calling, and is even, like I said, willing to concede first downs if it's 2nd and 1. Nah, he's just going, hey, let's just give them the first down. They may take a shot here because you don't really know what an offense is going to do on 2nd and 1 because the whole playbook's open. And then from a personnel standpoint, it always concerns you when you bring in that many additions from the portal. 22 right now in the December signing period, and that's not even after 15 practices they're going to have in the spring. Reevaluate the roster, go from there. I would do the same thing. I'm just saying, especially in the first-year program with a lot of new coaches, with a lot of guys to be bringing in. How do you manage those egos? Because if stuff gets bad early, you have some losses. I mentioned there's a lot of 7 losable games. They get 5 of them at home, though. But if things start going bad, a lot of transfer portal guys are just going to drop that rope. It's just the day and time we're in. So live with the sword, die by the sword kind of deal. Got to have strong assistant coaches to manage those personalities in today's market, especially when you go that portal heavy right now. 22 transfer portal additions, and we aren't even through spring yet. But with that being said, what is a realistic expectation for Texas A&M in 2024? Yeah, I'd say 8 wins. 8 wins, and then finally, before we wrap this up, does it look like they're prepared every week? There were times the lack of attention to detail within Jimbo Fisher's program. I mean, I worked in it. Would rear its ugly head on Saturday. Internally, people are like, not shocking. We saw that all day, all 7 days or 7 days of the week. But the fans wouldn't. I mean, look, you're going to lose football games at this level, especially high-end SEC football. A realistic fan can understand that. But committing a bunch of penalties, looking completely unprepared, especially in road games, then trying to fit square pegs into round holes consistently, that wears on people. It wears on people. Wins be damned. A&M fans will appreciate a well-prepared, organized team on a weekly basis, even if they don't come out on top in every game this upcoming fall. Getting 8 wins will satisfy this fan base, in my opinion. But even if they just miss that mark and just get to 7 and look prepared for the first time in 3 seasons, I think that'll go a long way for the A&M faithful, as they'll have the genuine optimism heading into someone's tenure for the first time really since 2020 and coming off that Orange Bowl year with Jimbo Fisher, where he quote unquote said, we ain't done yet. But they were done. They were done after that COVID year. But again, I think Mike Elko and them have a very manageable SEC schedule relatively. I think 8 wins would get it done. But the key is, how does it look? How does it look? Do they look organized? Do they look like they have a plan? Do we look like the future is bright? Because, hey, we don't really let the small things go. We're an attention to detail organization. So I just wanted to cover that. Expectations year 1 for Mike Elko. But moving on, we got Alex is joined us here. He is, let's see. Alex, we got you on, big dog. What's going on?
Hey, Dave, doing good. I can't really hear you at all.
Can you hear me? Alex? Alex, can you hear me? Let's see.
Yeah, I apologize. I can't hear you, Dave.
I can hear you. Let's see. Let me turn. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Nothing. Let's see. Let me resend the link real fast. So let's get you on. 1 sec. Sending you the new link. Anything yet? Can you hear me?
Can't hear you, man. Apologize.
No, you're good, brother. Let's see if we can send it again. Just a problem we'll figure out. All right, I sent over the new link. Let's see. I'll text you. try the new link. Let's see. I just DM'd you.
Yeah, I got you. I'll switch over to the new link.
Let's see. Can you hear me? Try the new link. Let's see. I just DM'd you. Perfect. Let's see. I heard you.
Hear you now.
Oh, perfect. We're in, baby.
All right. There
Got
we
you,
go.
Alex. Appreciate you joining, man.
Not a problem. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no problem, brother. Well, let's get right to it, man. I appreciate you what you do. Again, we have Alex Day with us here, guys. Does a phenomenal job for College Baseball Central. Dude, seriously, can you believe baseball season's already here?
Dude, I'm so excited. Football season's over. It's baseball season. I mean, we're just not even 3 weeks away, and it's gonna be a fun one.
All right, so also you can catch Alex tell me if I'm right here, at Radio Manday.
That is correct. At Radio Man Day.
Awesome, brother. So give me some just initial thoughts heading into the 2024 SEC baseball season. What's some storylines you like? Maybe some players you're looking forward to see, maybe taking that next step, some new coaches around the league. What's some thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting storylines. When you think about, first comes to mind, especially for me, is LSU. They're losing Dylan Cruz, Paul Skeens. They go 1-2 in the draft, and then you're also losing Trey Morgan, Jordan Thompson. Really key guys that have been there a long time and were really essential to their, to their run last year to the championship. What does that lineup look like? Coming into the season now. They brought in a ton of transfers. When you look at the pitching staff looks deep and talented, maybe even a better pitching staff than what they had last year. As a whole, obviously you're not replacing Paul Skeens. That guy comes around once in a generation. But, as a whole, I think the pitching staff's going to be better. But, will some of these young guys that were freshmen last year that got some good playing time, will they develop? Will they, kind of fill that void? Tommy Tanks was hurt most of the year. He's had off-season surgery. He's going to be back healthy. So what does this offense look like? And then Florida looks to be almost as good as they were last year. Their lineup is super potent. You certainly got Jack Caglione back. They brought in Colby Shelton from Alabama, who had 25 bombs as a freshman. That lineup is absolutely stacked, and they've got a freshman. They got a freshman, Liam Peterson, who's going to be in their weekend rotation, who has just been lighting it up. A&M's another one that has probably is going to have one of the best lineups in the country. When you look at Jace Lavalette, they brought in Braden Montgomery. But A&M's big question is going to be the pitching staff. That pitching staff was not good last year. So just, can the pitching staff keep it up? And then I've also got my eye on South Carolina. Their pitching staff, they lost some guys, but man, they've got a lot of guys back, and that lineup is deep and talented. When you look at Petrie and Cole Messina, and Casas and those guys.
Absolutely. So piggybacking off that, I wanted to bring this up because I know the Magnolia State, big college baseball state, even including, we're talking about Ole Miss, Mississippi State, obviously Southern Miss as well. But in your opinion, what does Ole Miss, Mississippi State have to do this year to get back kind of to the normal ways? We've seen two very poor down years for Mississippi State, coming off a national championship in 2020 or 2021 season. And then you had Ole Miss coming off their national championship in 22 and then not making the SEC tournament. Both teams not making it to Hoover last year. What do you think they need to do to kind of get back on the right track here in the Magnolia State?
The biggest thing I think for both teams is pitching. Can their pitching step up? Mississippi State last year, their offense was really good. Top half of the SEC offensively. They hit a ton of homers. Hunter Hines, Dakota Jordan, they've got some dudes offensively, but man, their pitching staff was just bad last year. Gave up a ton of walks, just a ton of free bases. And so that's where they have to improve if they want to, frankly, if Chris Malonis wants to keep his job.
Correct.
And then, at Ole Miss, it's kind of the same deal. They've got some young pieces, like Will Furness last year had some big moments for them. JT Quinn, I've heard, from some people down there that he's really taken a step forward this year. and could really be, a real Friday night ace for them. And if he's that, then, I look for Ole Miss to definitely make some big strides this year.
What's your thoughts over there on some new coaches in the league over there at Missouri, and then you got Alabama with Rob Vaughn over there coming over from Maryland?
Oh yeah, Rob Vaughn from Maryland. He's an excellent coach. Alabama lost some big talent. We already talked about Colby Shelton. Luke Holman's now at LSU. There was another reliever, Cade Woods from Alabama that came over to LSU. Yeah. So there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for them. But there's still a lot of talented guys there. Alton Davis, was a big piece for them last year out of the bullpen.
The big question for them, Alex, is what for Alton Davis? Is he going to get in that rotation, or is he going to still come out of the bullpen? It's kind of with the vibe you get over there.
Well, I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he's pushing hard to be in that starting rotation. Whether he actually makes it or not, we'll see. We'll see how Rob Vaughn fills out that card, because he was such a valuable piece for them coming out of the bullpen. So, but he is pushing hard. I mean, he's certainly got the talent. He's got the stuff to be, a weekend starter in this league. And we'll just see how that goes. Mizzou, their big issue last year, man, they just got killed by injuries. They came out and beat Tennessee that opening weekend of SEC play, and everybody was like, "Oh man, Mizzou's legit," and then they just got decimated by injuries. So how do those guys bounce back from injuries? Mizzou's never been a traditional power, so we'll see how it kind of goes for them. But I think a good season for them would be making the SEC tournament. I think that would be a really good season for them,
especially in the first year. Yeah. Now moving on, the defending national champs, the LSU Tigers, who you follow closely. What's some things you're looking forward to seeing out of the Tigers, especially maybe they may stumble – maybe stumble's the wrong word. Get off to a slow start in February that you kind of see could possibly be a strength of that team as we kind of get into May, June, as we get to SEC tournament in Hoover to regional time. Like what is something LSU – obviously the names, the Dylan Cruz, the Paul Skeens, I mean, I think they're going to miss Trey Morgan severely. I don't think he's really talked about a ton from that standpoint, especially defensively. What's some other holes you think LSU's got to plug – they want to kind of go get back to Omaha?
Well, I think you got to look in the middle infield. Jordan Thompson was a 3-year starter at shortstop, and
played a lot.
Say what you want about Jordan Thompson. He had his up and down career. He had some issues with errors, but
his junior year was rough, right? Wasn't it his junior year
or his sophomore year? Yeah,
I was watching. Alex, not to get off topic, I was watching, what game was it? It was 2 years ago. I don't know how I remember this. I think it was the Alabama-LSU series in Tuscaloosa. It was just a routine, I think, infield fly. I don't think it was an infield fly because I don't think anybody was on base for it to be called. But it was a routine fly, and he just whiffed. I forget. Yeah. I think it was Alabama and Tuscaloosa. You're right. LSU struggled Jay Johnson's first year defensively, if I remember right?
Yeah, they did. They really did. And a lot of that was kind of put on Jordan Thompson's shoes. I mean, he led the SEC in errors. That year. But I mean, if you're a 3-year starter at shortstop for LSU, I mean, every other prior starting shortstop before Jordan Thompson that's come through LSU is now playing in the Major League Baseball. So, I mean, there's a track record there of LSU putting shortstops in the league. Whether Jordan Thompson gets there or not, I don't know. But, you're certainly losing a veteran presence there at shortstop. And then you lose Gavin Dugas as well at second base. So you're replacing both of your middle infielders. And they've moved Josh Pearson, who was the left fielder, for them in Omaha. They moved him to second base, which is essentially the same thing they did with Gavin Dugas last year at the beginning of the year. They moved him from the outfield to second base. And, defensively, he was not the strongest. I mean, in Omaha, you saw them flip-flopping Dugas and Thompson when the left-handed batter would come up. I mean, that was mostly because Dugas was hurt. He had a hurt shoulder, but that just kind of speaks to, kind of how they felt about Dugas defensively. But he was certainly a veteran presence and a big bat for them. So replacing that, so how is Josh Pearson going to do with that transition from the outfield to second base? That's going to be a huge question mark.
Again, Alex Day, College Baseball Central contributor for us. Give him a follow at Ryan Manday. 2 more questions for you, Alex. Again, I appreciate you joining us, taking the time with us. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who do you like, I mean, in all honesty here, to win this league as we stand a couple weeks out? I know, obviously, baseball is a sport you get better as the year goes on, but as we get into the SEC play, the 30 games they play, the 10 series, who do you like to ultimately come out on top in the regular season?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot, and I think it really comes down to two teams. I think it's going to be Florida or it's going to be Arkansas. Arkansas looks to have maybe the best pitching staff, in the SEC. What's that?
They just lost an arm. Who was it out of the rotation for the Arkansas?
So they lost Jackson Wiggins. But he was hurt most of the year last year anyway. But you still got Hagen Smith, who has a real shot to be National Pitcher of the Year. You still got Brady Tigert, who was limited a lot during last year.
He was a big law,
Yeah, so they're going to be in their starting rotation. And then they've got just a ton of bullpen arms. Will McIntyre is another guy that doesn't quite get enough love there, I don't think, who's just going to be a Swiss Army knife for them. He's going to be all over. He can do anything you need for him out of the – he can start, he can long relief, whatever you need. And, I think a lot of people are kind of down on their lineup this year, but, you still got Kendall Diggs, you got Peyton Stovall. They brought in some transfers. They have a freshman catcher who's pushing for some serious playing time. And, so I think Arkansas – looks to be up there, and then Florida, like we already said, Jack Caglione, Colby Shelton, the freshman Liam Peterson. Those look to me to be the front runners for who's going to win out on this league.
I feel like I feel like Kendall Diggs has been in Arkansas since I was in middle school. Feels like he's been there forever. Same with Brady Tigert. But on the opposite end of the spectrum here, last question for you, Alex. Who's someone? I feel like there's someone every year, especially in baseball, for the SEC baseball, because it's so hard to predict. As there's so many newcomers, freshmen, but who is someone that is kind of predicted low in the conference from a media perspective that you could see kind of bump up, maybe either get a regional appearance or maybe exceed and maybe be one of those 7-8 host bids the SEC usually gets?
Yeah, I think I think Auburn's the biggest candidate for that. They got Ike Irish coming back, and so they've still got a lot of talent on that pitching staff and on their position player side. So I think Auburn, and maybe Alabama could be another one that maybe could surprise some people. If Rob Vaughn gets it together, maybe like you said, whether they're later in the season, they're playing better than they are earlier in the season. That maybe
Ben Haas staying healthy for them is key. And that
absolutely,
they got to keep their. They got one returning everyday field. Who's it? Matt Gassetti. I think the catcher is the guy. It's the only one that's back. I know they got some SEC experience in name slipping my head. The center fielder from Ole Miss that transferred. What's his name?
TJ McCants.
TJ McCants. Yeah. So he'll be transferring over there. But I think Alabama's rotation, if they stay healthy, I think could be one of the best in the league. But again, I think it's been a while since our guy Ben Hess has been healthy. It's been about 2 years for him to fully make that. But so you like Auburn, Alabama, one of those Yellowhammer State schools, you think kind of fitting in there?
Yeah, I think they've got a chance to kind of backdoor into the league and maybe get steal a regional bid.
Yeah, they kind of seem like they've been flipping spots in that D1 baseball poll, Baseball America poll that came out. It's like see Alabama and Auburn kind of in the back ends of those top 25 polls. So that will be interesting. But again, Alex, I appreciate you joining us, man. I know it was a little bit later of a start tonight, but I appreciate you joining us. Again, everybody, Alex Day from College Baseball Central. Give the man a follow. Does a phenomenal job at Radio Man Day. Like I mentioned, does a great job following college baseball, always talking to college baseball coaches, players, has great insight. We're 2.5 weeks out. What is it, February 16th for opening day there, Alex?
Yeah, that's right, and it's going to be fun. I'm going to be up in Arlington to start the season, first weekend of the season. Watching the college baseball showdown, and that's going to be a great place to watch some baseball.
Well, dude, I'm jealous of you, man. I'm jealous of you. Well, Alex, I appreciate you joining us, man. You have a phenomenal rest of your night.
All right, you too, Dave. Appreciate you having me on.
No problem at all. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Again, Alex Day from College Baseball Central does a phenomenal job. I think they do a really good job from that website. You hear about a lot of the D1 baseball, Baseball America, but College Baseball Central, they do a great job covering the sport. Really like what they're bringing. Just wanted to preview a little SEC baseball. It's probably from top to bottom. The SEC, it's crazy to say with football and now basketball coming, but baseball's been the most consistent sport for a while now in the SEC. But now transitioning to the hardwood. Probably review these games a little quicker because it's already at the 50-minute hour for you. But just wanted to get to it. Florida On Saturday, getting the 102-98 overtime win, kind of tell it two halves. Florida played a really good first 30 minutes. 19 turnovers was a big reason for that. I mean, that's why Georgia got back in this. Great week for Florida, though, getting 2 big home wins against Mississippi State and Georgia. But they blew a 19-point lead and a 21-point lead to both teams to let them get back in it. Florida's got to start playing complete games. Things can still be taken from this game, though, which is a good thing. They're winning, but there's some things they can grow from that Todd Golden can grow from. Georgia just got off to too poor of a start. Just got too poor of a start. Exhausted a lot of energy coming back. It took its toll in overtime. RJ Melendez going for 35, 6 from 10 from beyond the arc, which is outside the norm for him. Normally he's something around a 22% three-point shooter, I believe. So that was outside the norm of him. But give Mike White and Georgia credit. They fight. They're better. Rebounding on both ends of the floor for them will be something to keep an eye on. They're still fighting their tail off to get an NCAA tournament. Georgia has a great opportunity on Wednesday to get a big quad one win when they host Alabama. Florida got a big week this week as they head to Rupp to face Kentucky. South Carolina continues on their winning ways, beating Missouri 72-74 at Colonial Arena. 4 guys in double digits. B.J. Mach leading the way for the Gamecocks with 21. Meechie Johnson, one of their better players, wasn't great, 0 for 9. That just shows you how good Carolina can be. Knew this would kind of be a letdown game for them, though. Coming off the big home win against Kentucky. Missouri hungry, trying to get that first SEC win. Missouri just doesn't have that great equalizer. They don't shoot well from beyond the arc, even when they're playing okay. I mean, Missouri just shot 25% from 3, only shot 8. South Carolina, on the other hand, shot 40% from 3. It was really the difference. Missouri's there the whole time, but Missouri, I just don't like the scores. Like I've mentioned before, it's like they have their 7th, 8th, 9th guy from their team last year. No Kobe Brown, Demoy Hodge. I mean, Noah Carter, Nick Honor. They're just kind of guys. Still, I like my guy Dennis Gates, though, as their head coach. But South Carolina getting a win and kind of an upset, sleepy game for them early after a big win at home, but South Carolina gets done. In the league this year, you just take your wins as they come. Mississippi State get one of the bigger wins of the day, getting the 64-58 win over Auburn at Humphrey Coliseum. If you're a fan of offense, this wasn't your cup of tea, let's be honest. But Chris Jans is apologizing to no one for the way he coaches his team. He's apologizing to no one. Go watch his press conference. It will always be defense-first mentality in Starkville. The Bulldogs just got 9 points out of Tolu Smith, his lowest output of the season. But it didn't matter because Mississippi State dominated the glass on a 45-30 margin and a 14-6 advantage on the offensive glass. Just felt like Auburn could never put a complete half together. It's like Bruce Pearl said. This game just felt real grimy the whole time, and Auburn just couldn't put it together. Auburn had a rough week on the road, back-to-back losses at Alabama and at Mississippi State. Nothing to hang your hat on if you're an Auburn fan, but guard play is an interest. Like on the road, neutral sites, how will Aiden Holloway play? I know what I'm getting out of Janai Broome, but Aiden Holloway, Katie Johnson, Trey Donaldson, guys like that, how are they going to play away from Neville Arena? That is key. That is key to how far this team will go. It's early. No need to panic. I like Auburn. Still the deepest team in the league, in my opinion, there. But again, guard play, similar issues everybody complained about with Zep Jasper and Wendell Green last year. That's got to change if Auburn wants to make a deep run in March. Big challenge for Mississippi State this week. They're on the road. They go at Ole Miss tomorrow. Big one. That's a big game for both Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Another opportunity for both teams to get a quad one win. And then Mississippi State heads to Tuscaloosa on Saturday night for their second matchup in 3 weeks against Alabama. But a big win for Mississippi State, probably one of the bigger winners of the weekend. Tennessee gets a 75-62 win over Vandy at Memorial Coliseum. Wasn't pretty, very 2019 game, but that was the year Vanderbilt didn't even win a conference game and took Tennessee's Sweet 16 team that lost to Purdue with Admiral Schofield and them down to the wire. So it sounds like Tennessee always gets Vanderbilt's best effort at Memorial. Doesn't sound like it. They do. But Dalton Connect, just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Against Mississippi State, he went for 28, Georgia 36, Florida 39, against Alabama 25, and then Vanderbilt 32. Just a do-it-all guy. Just a true do-it-all guy. Dalton Connect is right now. But give Vanderbilt credit. I mean, I'm a little hard on Jerry Stackhouse because it's been 5 years and he hadn't made an NCAA tournament. And it kind of bothered me last year. It's kind of a Dave thing. I brought it into this year. My buddies always call me out like, man, you hate Jerry Stackhouse. I really don't. I like Jerry Stackhouse. I think he has good schemes. But he got co-SEC Coach of the Year last year for a bubble team. And in 5 years, he hasn't made the NCAA tournament. And I get it. The sitting your grandma's Vanderbilt with Kevin Stallings. NIL, new era, tough to keep a roster, retention's hard. I get it. Come on, man. At some point, you got to make the NCAA tournament. Total sleeper game for Tennessee. They were down 7.5. I think they only got their lead, not first lead, but really controlled the game with about 12 minutes left in the second half. So Don't Connect decided to take over. Went a lot going for Tennessee. Kentucky gets the 63-57 win in Fayetteville against Arkansas. Again, not a pretty performance, similar to Tennessee. Kentucky missed 15 of their first 16 shots. They were down for a significant amount in this game. Tough week on the road. Lost at South Carolina. Did not perform well in Fayetteville. But you never take a win in that arena, in Bud Walton Arena. It'll always be Bud Walton Arena to me. But you don't take a win for granted there. But the offense just seems so off for Kentucky on Saturday evening. Arkansas was without Devo Davis, who's Jay Billis announced went AWOL. He's stepping away from the program. Trevon Brazile, down, their big front court guy, did not play as well. Rob Dillingham, though, didn't play for Kentucky. Very ugly game in the first half. But Arkansas still had chances to take advantage of this game. But Kentucky was eventually going to hit some shots, and boy, did Antonio Reed step up. 24 points on 9 of 20 shooting and 4 of 8 from beyond the arc. Whew. We'll talk about Auburn in a second, but Kentucky and Auburn both will be glad to get home after 2 straight road games. Or we already talked about Auburn, sorry. Both Auburn and Kentucky will be glad to get back home this week. Kentucky gets Florida, Auburn gets Vanderbilt. Kentucky, ugly win, but they got it. You don't take those wins in Bud Walton for granted. Alabama getting the 109-88 win over LSU. Alabama's 600-point game of the season. Mark Sears has taken his game to another level this year. It really is amazing. He was kind of like their third, fourth option last year. I didn't know if he, going into the season, if he could really create his own shot, be that number one dude. He has. He can take guys off the dribble, create his own shot. Fantastic shooter. Does a phenomenal job. Latrell Wrightsell could be Alabama's best overall transfer portal pickup so far. The Cal State Fulton transfer, 19 points on 5 for 10 shooting from beyond the arc. This could be Alabama's best offense in program history. Even better than last year. From top to bottom, it is spread out. A lot better shooting team. But defense will still be a determining factor on if Alabama wins the regular season or not in the SEC. I thought LSU, Matt McMahon had a great game plan coming in. Mike Williams, the freshman, shot the ball well right off the bat. With Jalen Cook, again, much different team, but I think he's a little too far gone. I think they're in that category with Missouri, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. I think we got 4 teams in the SEC that are really on the outside looking in. LSU's right there with them as well. But Alabama getting the 109-88 win over LSU. Big win against Georgia on Wednesday. Then finally, Ole Miss. Both Mississippi schools, probably the biggest winners of Saturday night. Ole Miss got the biggest win of the season in 70, and it's of its season, and a 71-68 win in College Station over Texas A&M. That's the program's first win in College Station. Not as crazy as it sounds, because obviously A&M hadn't been in the league. It's really since the 13 basketball season that they got in the league. But Ole Miss was down 7 with around 4 minutes left and won the game. It was unbelievable. Jalen Murray's late 3 put the Revs on top. Tight game the whole way, and Ole Miss shooting 41% from 3 was probably the difference. Massive win for Ole Miss and Chris Beard, who'd been struggling on the road. A&M was in control in both the first and second halves. Towards the end of both those halves, they were in control and let Ole Miss go on a run. Just collapsed, A&M did. Buzz Williams would not like that in film review. Also very poor at the free throw line. It seems like A&M will do that every now. 12 for 22. That's not going to get it done against good teams. Newsflash, Wade Taylor, the fourth, carried A&M with 30 points. I mean, it's either him or Boots Radford shooting and Henry Coleman getting rebounds. It's an ugly style, but it's just why they'll be inconsistent. They're 45th in net rankings as of today, 4-4 in quad one-win games A&M is. And that sounds about right with how they play. Just a little inconsistent, but massive game for Ole Miss and Mississippi State tomorrow night in Oxford. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Net rankings heading into this week's action. Tennessee comes in at number 3, Alabama number 6, Auburn number 9, Kentucky number 22, Mississippi State 38th, Florida 39th, Texas A&M 45th. Remember that 7 SEC teams in the top 50 right there. Then you got South Carolina coming in at 52nd, Ole Miss 57th, so that's 9 in the top 60 right out there. Georgia 80th, still some work to do, but a big opportunity on Wednesday at home against Alabama. Like I mentioned, the bottom 4 teams on the outside looking in here. LSU coming in at 94th, Missouri 122nd, Arkansas 129th, which is, wow, crazy to say. Most disappointing team in college basketball, but there we go. And then Vanderbilt at 237. Let me show you those SEC standings before we go over this week's action in my SEC power rankings. SEC basketball standings as we got Alabama a half-game lead on Tennessee because Tennessee didn't play a midweek game last week, but Alabama coming in 6-1 in conference, 14-6 overall, pretty much tied with Tennessee. Half-game lead with Tennessee 5-1, 15-4 overall. South Carolina, Auburn, and Kentucky all tied at 5-2 in league play. Carolina 17-3 overall, Auburn 16-4, Kentucky 15-4. Ole Miss, Florida, Georgia coming in at 4-3. Ole Miss similar 17-3, just like South Carolina. Florida 14-6, and Georgia with the same record as Florida at 14-6. Mississippi State a game behind them, but tied with A&M and LSU at 3-4. Mississippi State 14-6, a little bit more of that upper tier with those group. They're in that group with Ole Miss and Florida and Georgia more so than they are, and A&M. LSU's tied with them. It just doesn't really feel like they're in the same role. They've had some rough non-conference losses, but A&M coming at 12-8 overall, LSU 11-9. Then you get the bottom three teams: Arkansas coming in at 1-6, 10-10 overall, Missouri 0-7, 8-12, and Vanderbilt 0-6, 5-14. So I mean, you got two teams tied really at 6-1, 5-1. You got three teams at 5-2, three teams at 4-3. And then three teams at 3-4. It's just a log jam of three different teams. We still got a lot of basketball left. A lot of basketball, but just wanted to go through the standings there with you. Go back over here. And then this week's schedule. Starting with, we got two games tomorrow. So we got South Carolina at Tennessee. Kim Palm giving Tennessee an 87% chance of winning at home at Thompson-Boling Arena. Massive opportunity for South Carolina, but Tennessee at home, dang near impossible. Dang near impossible. It is so hard to win on the road this year in this league. And in college basketball in general, the stats back it up. Everybody's just older from the portal. Then obviously you can complain about refs. And I think officiating's gone down this year in college basketball. It's just so inconsistent. But again, you can't expect to get a lot of calls on the road. The foul efficiency differential is going to be big time. It's going to go against the road team at home. It just is. That's the sport. But I'd agree with Kim Palm. I think Tennessee gets the home win. Don't see many teams beating Tennessee in Knoxville this year. They're kind of only played one game in the last week. They should be getting a little fresh. Mississippi State at Ole Miss, probably the biggest midweek game of the week, one of the bigger matchups overall. Kim Palm, you don't see this a lot. It's a 50-50 matchup. But give me the home team. Again, I like the home teams right now in college basketball. I think Ole Miss, Chris Beard at home are going to be tough to beat. On the road, it could be a little different, but they did just go win at Reed Arena in College Station. I'd agree. This is a 50-50 thing, but it'll probably be a zoo at the Pavilion tomorrow. But give me Ole Miss at home. I think you see a big Matthew Morrell day. If I'm Chris James at Ole Miss, I am feeding Tolu Smith. Let's get him going as we get to the midway point of conference play. We need him rolling on the back half. Oh, Mississippi State has two of the best wins in the SEC right now: Auburn at home and Tennessee at home. Just be a fun matchup tomorrow. It's be a fun matchup, but I like Ole Miss in a 50-50 game. Going to Wednesday night's action, Alabama at Georgia. Kim Palm giving Alabama a 72% chance of winning. I like the matchup here. It's just on the road. I like the matchup for Alabama. Georgia goes a little bit smaller, less athletic lineup. Don't really rebound that well. It kind of fits into what Alabama wants to do. If Alabama can just defend the initial shot well against Georgia, who has really good shooters, Abdur-Rahim, and then you got R.J. Melendez, all shoot the ball really well. And then the true freshman Silas Demery does as well. If Alabama can rebound, defend the first shot, I like them here. It's just on the road. It's going to be tough. Like, it's probably a desperate Georgia team. How do they kind of come into this after a big comeback but losing in overtime at Florida over the weekend? Give me Alabama in a close one. I wouldn't have said that last week. I thought this may be a game Alabama lost. But, man, if Alabama goes 2-0 this week, getting at Georgia and Mississippi State at home, that would be massive for their chance to go win the SEC regular season. Remember, if you want to go compete for the SEC regular season, I talked about Tennessee being a tough team to beat at home this year. You got to hold serve at home. Maybe lose one game. No way anymore. That's why I think Auburn's still in this year. They're not going to lose many home games this year. And then Florida at Kentucky. I think this is the second best midweek matchup. Kentucky with a 68% chance to win. Kentucky with a big week this week. Florida and Tennessee. I like Kentucky here at home. Florida's a different team on the road, but man, Kentucky opened up conference play at the O'Connell Center, or not the O'Connor, so whatever they call it now over there. It's always the O-Dome to me in Florida, but opened up conference play with a win at Florida this year. Florida's going to be coming back looking for revenge, but I like Kentucky at home. They haven't played great the past 2 weeks, but they're back in their home confines at Rupp Arena. Give me Kentucky here. Maybe even big. Expect Rob Dillingham back, but I like Kentucky big here. It's one of my bold statements there. So I've agreed with Kim Palm across the board here so far, except 50-50, but I'm going with the home team at Ole Miss. Arkansas at Missouri. Missouri with a 62% chance of winning this game. Give me Arkansas here. I think they're just due to get a win. I know it's on the road. They're not playing well. They really have nothing going for them. This is not really a studied pick. I just don't really like Missouri right now. And maybe I'm wrong going against picking Arkansas at all. And I've been riding the Must bus has flat tires more than anybody. But I think, weirdly enough, maybe the Kentucky game close gives them some kind of confidence. I don't know. I just feel that Arkansas gets a win here. Just a feel. I'm going to disagree with Kim Pom here. They have, again, Missouri with a 62% chance of winning this one. And then Vanderbilt at Auburn, where we already saw this game about 2 weeks ago in Nashville. Auburn got a big win. Auburn with, you don't see these high odds, but it shows you how bad this Vanderbilt team is. I should say they're not bad. It just shows you how good really Auburn is at home, because Vanderbilt's competed with Alabama and Tennessee both at home this year. But Auburn with a 98% chance of winning. I think Auburn comes and looks good. They want to get back at home after dropping 2 road games to 2 tough teams, Alabama and Mississippi State. I think they get back to their winning ways. Don't have much more to say about that one. I think Auburn wins this one. And then Texas A&M and LSU are both off midweek. The SEC is doing that this year. Each team will kind of have a bye during the midweek, so they'll only play one game that week. And this week it happens to be Texas A&M and LSU. But that will do it for this episode of Mach 10 Sports, our Monday episode. I think we're going to start going at 8 o'clock, guys, just for our frequent listeners here. We're going to start going at 8 Central, so 9 Eastern if you're on the Eastern time zone. But again, like, subscribe, go comment. Tell me I'm doing a terrible job. Like, hey, man, pick up the baseball coverage. Granted, I think we do a good job of baseball coverage. But again, you're the audience. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Go listen to us on all podcast avenues, on Spotify, Apple. You can find us anywhere. Again, we talked about year one expectations for Mike Elko, College Station. We talked a little SEC baseball preview with our guy from College Baseball Central. Alex Day does a phenomenal job covering. He likes Arkansas to win the league, and he likes one of the Alabama or Auburn to kind of step up and be that surprise team this year. We reviewed the SEC basketball action that was previewed this week's action. Remember, we got 7 SEC teams in the net ranking top 50 with really 9 in the top 60 with South Carolina and Ole Miss just sitting out there. And I think right now we really do have true 4 locks from the conference right now in basketball. Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, and Kentucky are in. Mississippi State kind of getting there. A win tomorrow, and Oxford would almost lock it. But again, we have some phenomenal action coming up on the hardwood this week. Baseball season 2.5 weeks away. Portal will be opening up here before we know it. Spring football. Got a lot going on, guys. Great time of year. But again, I appreciate you joining us on this episode of Mach 10 Sports. You have a fantastic night.